Plaskett of the United States Virgin Islands. She's a member of the House Intelligence Committee and the ranking member for the new Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. She also served as a House manager for the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. And it is a pleasure again to have you here in the studio. Great to see you.
It's always good to see you. And welcome back from that amazing trip that you made to Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about everything that's going on right now. There's a lot of interest in Michael Cohen's going to be speaking to a grand jury. He's been there 20 times. I mean, you know this. You're a lawyer. Something feels like it's going to happen there, but it's not the thing that most people are waiting for, right? The Stormy Daniels payments, interesting though they are, that was in the quaint old days of maybe Donald Trump doesn't follow the rule of the law all as carefully as the rest of us.
Sure, that was the clutching your pearls.
That was the clutching your pearls. Now democracy is at stake. Exactly. And you heard my conversation, a little of my conversation with Benny Thompson. We're waiting for something to happen.
Sure.
Where are you in this process of waiting for things to happen?
I think we're all expecting before the fall, much of these indictments, if they are going to come through, right? We've got Georgia, where that is election interference. There's also the special prosecutor, which I think many of us have forgotten about. And I think that that's a very solid case in terms of the obstruction of justice, interfering with government, not turning those documents over. The Espionage Act was exactly the act that the warrant to get the documents back cited. And then, of course, there is the January 6th, where Benny Thompson and my other colleagues did a masterful job of continually pointing the crime back to Donald Trump from the words of his own staffers.
Right.
And I assume that the special prosecutor is looking at that as well.
So let's start with that, January 6th, because you were the first draft of that. As an impeachment manager, you were laying out the first information. And then they spent a lot of time getting even more information. There are a lot of people watching this morning who are asking, what's enough? Most of us wouldn't think we'd make it out of the building without being either fired or arrested or both if we engaged in any of this stuff. And lots of people have been arrested and charged with respect to January 6th. But what is enough to get the organizers of this thing to face justice?
Well, I think that the special prosecutor has to be very careful, because we are then going to be indicting a former president. That has not been done before. We've seen vice presidents indicted and charges brought before them, but we have not seen a president face these kind of charges, basically attempting to overthrow the government of the United States. And so my assumption is that the special prosecutor is going to have to make a very strong recommendation for Merrick Garland, who is not appointed by Trump.
Right.
To be the individual to say, yes, we're pulling the trigger, we're going to do this. And we also have to remember that while this should not be political, of course it is.
Sure.
And we have an election coming up in 2024, which to me signals that you've got to get this out the gate before it appears to many Americans, those independents, those Democrats, that you're doing it for political purposes. We know that we've lost the extreme right, that any taint anything that we've said that has evidence, that has facts about Donald Trump, they're not going to hear.
Let's talk about Georgia. We all heard that perfect phone call, one of many perfect phone calls the former president made. That is being pursued by Fani Willis in Georgia. It's also part of Jack Smith, the special prosecutor's remit. Where does that go? Because that's another one where every American heard what we think of as the evidence and the proof. I understand that a lot of people have to be interviewed under oath, but tell me about the importance of that case and whether that's easier or harder to deal with.
Well, as a former prosecutor, I can see arguments that the defense will make that the phone call was really a suggestion of him finding votes that were already out there, not for him to fabricate votes. And so we've got to get, corroborating evidence, not just the phone call itself, but evidence that corroborates the intent of the president for him to fabricate that. That includes the slate of electors that they were attempting to bring in, as well as the actions of Rudy Giuliani and the cast of characters in his show.
You and I talked, I think it might have been the last time, about this select subcommittee that you're on the weaponization of the federal government. And I think we both agreed that we don't want to see the weaponization of the federal government, but we were not sure that this committee's intentions are pure as a driven snow. Where are you now that there's been a little bit of time? What is this committee doing, and what are you hopeful about, and what are you worried about?
Well, I'm exhausted, but I am very now of the mind frame that this is really a political stunt on the part of Jim Jordan and others. I see the pressure that he is getting from those on the right, from others in the Republican Party who want this to be Benghazi 2.0. That want this to be something that can be used against the entire Biden administration. For example, we're discussing Twitter in the last one. I thought we had already gone through a hearing with Twitter in the Oversight Committee, but the Weaponization Committee looked at it. And the things that they were, first of all, you have journalists who put out a report that say that the emails that they have viewed are in fact the smoking gun that the federal government is looking at this. Well, let's just take that in context. First of all, they admitted to us that there were hundreds of thousands of emails that they saw, and they focused only on 300. And so we believe that that's out of context. Second of all, they were talking about the FBI having paid Twitter. FBI pays all social media platforms because they know at different points they're going to have to get data collection for them. Right. And that's their upfront paying a fee that they know they're going to have to need when they need to get information fast from neo-Nazis, white supremacists.
Right, so they're not having that negotiation
so they're not going to have
on a
that
given day.
Exactly. Right. And that's what Jim Jordan is trying to make something out of. Additionally, they want to talk about the Federal Trade Commission that is looking at Twitter. The Federal Trade Commission entered into consent decree with Twitter long before Elon Musk came on board. And so the question is, why is Jim Jordan, why are these reporters so interested in doing the bidding of Elon Musk?
Right.
And so that becomes problematic because Twitter only represents 7% of individuals who are online. And while the American people have so many much more important issues, they want us to look at the shiny object that they put in front of us rather than...
Because one of the issues is last weekend at CPAC, the former president of the United States, who's running to be the president of the United States, told everybody, I am your justice, I am your retribution.
I am your retribution.
That worried me. What does that mean? Anybody I don't like, if I get reelected, I'm going to take care of using the levers of government. The implication to me seemed quite clear.
Exactly. While at the same time, members of the House of Representatives, Republican members, are attempting to go and visit insurrectionists in jail. They want special treatment for people that have tried to overthrow our government. This is madness. Our president has put out a budget. The Republicans, particularly the Freedom Caucus, give us a ransom note rather than putting out their own budget.
About the debt ceiling.
What we're going to do, this is how we're going to hold the American people hostage. And this is what we need from you before we release you from debt and before we sit down and negotiate on the budget. What they did say in the budget is that they're going to roll back over $400 billion of veterans' health care, all of the discretionary funding, the things that we have all been working on to bring Americans some relief so that we can get ahead. That's what the chaos that is happening, that Speaker McCarthy has put us in by giving up the gavel to the madness within his.
We all wondered in that crazy week of his election what he was offering and what he was giving up.
Well, we saw
with
Tucker Carlson and others. This is exactly what he gave up. And we're going to see more. There's got to be more.
Good to see you in real life again.
So good to see you.
Stacey Plaskett is the U.S. representative for the Virgin Islands.